Stop worrying. Yes, I said it, because while you're up at night stressing, crying, doubting, checking the clock, God is working. And He doesn't clock out. He doesn't panic. He doesn't lose sleep. He's not intimidated by the size of your problem or the silence of your progress. You keep looking at your life thinking it's falling apart, but God says it's not falling apart, it's falling into place. You've been staring at the ashes, but God has already sent the fire to refine, not destroy. You've been trying to hold on to old patterns, but He's breaking the mold to pour you into something you've never seen before. Hear me, this is not a season of repair, this is a season of rebirth. God's not patching the old, He's pressing reset. He's doing a new thing, not a recycled thing, not a familiar thing, but a thing so fresh, so divine, it won't make sense until it manifests. You thought the door closing was rejection. It wasn't rejection, it was redirection. You thought the silence meant God left you. It wasn't absence, it was preparation. You thought the delay meant denial, but delay is just heaven's way of building momentum. Stop checking the calendar, trying to calculate your destiny. Stop comparing your process to someone else's progress. This new thing God is doing in you, it doesn't run on your timing, it runs on His revelation. You don't need to understand it, you need to trust it. You don't need all the answers, you need to say why. Yes, yes to letting go, yes to walking blind in faith, yes to what makes no sense but speaks to your spirit. You're worried because you've never seen it before. But that's the point. If it looked familiar, it wouldn't be new. If it felt safe, it wouldn't stretch you. If it came easy, it wouldn't be supernatural. You want God to move, but are you willing to be moved? This is the season to stop praying for what's comfortable and start preparing for what's coming. God is not done with you. He's not finished. He's not frustrated. He's just getting started. So wipe your tears, stand up straight, shake off the dust of yesterday, and say this out loud. I will not worry. I will not fear. God is doing a new thing, and it begins with me. Worry is not just an emotion. It is a spiritual interference. It creeps into your thoughts and clouds your vision. It masquerades as concern, but it is a counterfeit companion that pulls you out of position. While you're busy rehearsing your fears, you're missing your instructions. Worry doesn't just paralyze, it misdirects. It convinces you to focus on what you can't control, instead of trusting the one who already has the outcome written. When God is trying to lead you forward, worry will whisper every reason to stay where you are. It speaks in what-ifs and maybes, flooding your mind with worst-case scenarios while heaven is calling you to move in bold faith. Worry will have you questioning what God already confirmed. It will have you circling promises instead of walking into possession. It is not a minor distraction. It is a weapon of delay. There are doors waiting on your obedience, but worry has you stuck in hesitation. You don't need more evidence. You need less anxiety. Worry cancels out clarity. It fogs your spirit. You can't hear divine direction when your ears are filled with fear. God is still speaking, but worry has turned up the volume on your doubts and turned down the frequency of your discernment. That's why you feel stuck, not because God has gone silent, but because your focus has shifted. Divine direction often comes in a whisper, not a roar. It shows up in peace, not panic. It flows through faith, not fear. So if you're living in constant mental warfare, unable to make decisions, doubting every step, chances are you've allowed worry to take the wheel. And the dangerous part is, worry doesn't take you backwards. It just keeps you running in circles. You'll feel like you're moving, but you're not progressing. Worry will rob you of divine timing. It will make you delay what you were meant to decide. It will make you question what God told you in the light when you're standing in the dark. Some of the greatest breakthroughs are missed, not because God didn't speak, but because worry made someone afraid to move. And while you're worrying about how it's going to happen, heaven is waiting on you to obey the who that called you. You weren't created to carry the weight of the outcome. That's God's job. Your job is to walk, believe, trust, and release. But worry tries to make you carry what only grace can handle. It builds imaginary burdens and asks you to solve problems that haven't even happened yet. And while you're busy solving a future that God already holds, you've stopped listening to the instructions for now. That's how worry steals divine moments. It makes you live in a future fear instead of a present faith. God can't steer a parked heart, and worry parks your spirit. It distracts your mind, detours your energy, and distances you from the supernatural signals he's sending. You're asking for guidance, but your thoughts are tuned to anxiety, not alignment. The voice of worry is loud, but the voice of God is steady. And you can't follow both. What you call chaos, God calls construction. The noise, the mess, the uncertainty. It's not punishment, it's preparation. You look around and see things breaking down, falling apart, shifting in ways you didn't expect. But heaven sees a building site. Heaven sees a blueprint. Heaven sees structure forming under the rubble of what used to be comfortable. Just because it doesn't make sense right now doesn't mean it's not sacred. God doesn't need your understanding to do his building. Chaos is often a sign that the foundation is being touched. And when God starts dealing with your foundation, everything built on the old has to come down. That includes your expectations, your timing, your logic, and sometimes even your relationships. The noise of breaking is not a curse. It's an indication that God is not letting you settle in a space too small for your calling. He's removing what can't support the next level. He's gutting out what won't stand under the weight of his next move in your life. See, we like clean miracles. We like polished testimonies. But real transformation starts with demolition. And demolition doesn't look spiritual. It looks confusing. It looks like unanswered prayers. It feels like spiritual silence. It feels like life spinning out of control. But that's just because God has pulled back the curtain and started rearranging the architecture of your future. You prayed for elevation, and God responded with excavation, because before he lifts you up, he digs you deep. The shaking you're experiencing isn't random, it's precise, it's divine. Every loose board, every unstable wall, every hidden crack is being exposed, not to shame you, but to stabilize you. Because what's coming next can't be built on brokenness. What's coming next needs a new frame, and God, in his wisdom, will often disguise growth in chaos. He doesn't build in silence, he builds through storms. You thought God left you, but he just put on a hard hat. He's working, he's designing, he's removing what can't stay. Sometimes he'll even allow a storm to strip away everything that's not rooted so he can show you what is. Because we trust too much in the visible, we think peace is quiet. We think order means God is near. But often God is loudest in the noise. He is present in the mess. And he's closest when it looks like everything is falling apart. You don't build a masterpiece without making a mess. The mess is part of the making. The confusion is part of the clearing. The tears, the questions, the nights when your faith feels like it's hanging by a thread, those are signs of deep construction. God is not just tweaking your life, he's transforming it, and transformation requires tearing out the temporary. It requires discomfort. It requires faith that trusts the builder even when you can't trace the plan. This chaos didn't come to destroy you, it came to develop you. You're under divine renovation. What looks like confusion is actually coordination. What feels unstable is being rebuilt stronger. What's hidden now will soon be revealed. God is not in the business of fixing what was never meant to last. He's not interested in putting a fresh coat of paint on a faulty foundation. When God moves in your life, he doesn't just adjust, repair, or remodel. He recreates. He tears down the old, removes the fragments of what once was, and breathes life into something brand new. Not improved, not upgraded, new. You've been asking God to tweak it, but he's planning to transform it. You're praying for restoration, but he's preparing a rebirth. Too often we come to God wanting him to bless our broken ideas, to resuscitate expired seasons, to make stale places feel alive again. But God is not the God of repetition. He is the God of resurrection. Resurrection doesn't mean something old gets patched up. It means something dead gets made alive in a brand new form. That's why you feel the pressure. That's why everything familiar seems to be falling apart. He's not trying to make your past comfortable. He's trying to call your future into existence. When God recreates, he starts with emptiness. The earth was void before he spoke light. The womb of Sarah was barren before Isaac. The tomb of Lazarus was sealed before he called him out. God doesn't need raw material. He is the raw material. He doesn't work with leftovers. He speaks into nothing and creates everything. And that's why he doesn't renovate. Because renovation would mean he needs what's already there. But recreation means he's building with his word, not your history. Some of us are holding on to spiritual floor plans God has already torn down. You're still clinging to relationships he's released, to strategies he's stripped, to timelines he's overturned. You want him to bless your version, but he's crafting his vision, and his vision requires surrender. Not slight agreement, not partial cooperation, but total surrender, because new wine can't be poured into old wineskins. If God gave you the blessing you're asking for while you're still thinking like the old you, it would crush you. You're not just in transition, you're in transformation. And transformation is messy. You're going to feel like you're losing everything. You're going to question the process. you're going to wonder why nothing looks like what you prayed for. But that's what recreation looks like. It doesn't resemble renovation. There's no blueprint from before, no point of reference, because when God recreates, he breaks the mold. He doesn't copy the former thing. He declares, "Behold, I do a new thing." This is why you can't go back. This is why the old doors won't open. This is why old relationships feel misaligned, because you're not being fixed. You're being formed. You're not being restored to who you were. You're being called into who you were always meant to be. God isn't rearranging your past, he's releasing your purpose. And that purpose requires a version of you that has never existed before. A version that only his hand can shape, only his word can speak, and only his spirit can sustain. Delay does not mean denial. It means development. It means God has pulled you into a divine holding place, not to punish you, but to prepare you. You keep calling it a delay, but heaven calls it a delivery room, a sacred space where something greater than you is forming, something weighty, something that carries purpose, legacy, and destiny. The contractions you feel are not setbacks, they're signals. The pressure is not random, it's pushing. In the natural, no mother curses the labor room just because it hurts, because she understands that pain is part of the process. Delay is not evidence that God forgot. It's proof that what he's birthing through you can't be rushed. The greater the promise, the more precise the preparation. And God is too wise to deliver something immature. He's too faithful to release a premature blessing. He will not give you what you prayed for until you're ready to carry it. What's developing inside of you cannot be seen yet, but that doesn't mean it isn't real. Just like a child in the womb, the dream is alive long before it's visible. And in the waiting, in the discomfort, in the quiet months when nothing seems to be moving, God is shaping the unseen. He's aligning people. He's adjusting your posture. He's growing your capacity. He's stretching your spirit to hold what's coming. But here's what the enemy won't tell you. Delay will always try to disguise itself as defeat. It will make you question whether God even heard you. It will make you doubt the promise and want to walk away. That's why you've got to protect your spiritual womb. You can't afford to let every voice speak into this season. Not everyone will understand the weight. Not everyone will see the value in your pause. But you must remember, what you're carrying is too valuable to rush. There are certain things God can only do in delay. He teaches endurance there. He tests trust there. He detoxes pride there. He burns off false motives there. The delay is not empty. It's full of divine surgery. It's where God separates the ambition from the assignment, the convenience from the calling, the fantasy from the faith. Delay exposes what distraction hides, and in that stillness he anchors your spirit so that when the promise finally comes, you don't break while holding it. Some blessings are heavy, some callings come with weight, and if you're not strengthened first, you'll collapse under what you once celebrated. So God, in his mercy, takes you through the delay, not to break you, but to build you, not to frustrate you, but to form you, not to harm you, but to harden your spiritual muscles, because delivery requires strength, not just in the promise, but in the person receiving the promise. And when that appointed time arrives, there will be no question, no confusion, no need to chase, because what God births, he sustains. What he authors, he finishes, and what he delays, he perfects. God can open a new door, but if your mind is still chained to the past, you'll miss the moment. You can't walk into a new season thinking like the old version of yourself. You can't carry old logic, old fears, old habits, and old insecurities into a future that demands a renewed mind. The weight of what was will always sabotage what could be if you're not willing to shift your perspective. Heaven can release it, but if your mind set isn't ready, you won't be able to receive it. God is not just trying to take you to a new place, he's trying to shape a new person. And transformation doesn't start with a change in scenery. It starts with a change in mentality. You're asking God for next-level blessings, but next-level blessings require next-level beliefs. You're still thinking survival, while God is trying to teach you strategy. You're still waiting for permission, while God has already given you the promise. But if your thoughts are still tethered to the trauma, you'll question every breakthrough like it's a setup. You cannot expect the new thing to fit into the old frame. The wineskin of yesterday cannot hold the oil of tomorrow. The discipline, faith, and confidence required for where you're going will cost you the comfort of where you've been. You can't pray for God to change your life and still think like a victim. You can't carry a poverty mindset into a season of overflow. You can't lead like a warrior and think like a worrier. This is why some doors seem delayed, not because heaven hasn't opened them, but because your mind isn't ready to walk through them. You've been rehearsing your failures, replaying old wounds, listening to voices that told you who you used to be, and that narrative is killing your momentum. God is trying to upgrade your identity, but you're still quoting your history. He's calling you forward, but you're stuck explaining the detours of your past. The enemy doesn't have to chain your feet if he can chain your mind. He doesn't have to block the opportunity if he can blind you with fear. That's why spiritual growth isn't optional, it's vital. Because your next blessing comes with new responsibilities, and if your mindset isn't aligned, you'll sabotage the very thing you prayed for. God can release the miracle, but if your thinking is still small, you'll mishandle it. Sometimes the biggest breakthrough isn't around you, it's within you. It's when you finally stop viewing yourself through the lens of your mistakes and start seeing yourself through the mirror of God's Word. It's when you replace doubt with destiny, fear with faith, and memories with vision. The old mindset was built for survival, but this next season is about expansion. And expansion demands a renewed perspective, a matured faith, and a healed identity that's no longer defined by what you've been through, but by what you're being called to become. You're not stuck, you're being shaped. Every delay, every storm, every moment of silence is part of God's divine construction. He's not renovating your life, he's recreating it from the inside out. Worry can't walk with purpose. Old mindsets can't carry new anointing. What feels like chaos is actually preparation, and the waiting room is the delivery room for what's next. God is not recycling your past, he's birthing something original. Let go of fear, Release the need to control and align your heart with heaven's timing. What God is doing is new, necessary, and worth every moment it takes to unfold.